Today we're going to talk about lesson 8.5 and 8.6 at the same time, and it's factoring trinomials. You're going to learn exactly the same rule for both lessons, but I'll show you the difference as we go. Today when we go through the examples, I want you to practice writing things on the left side that you would need to write that would help you to ask questions and to remember the rules as you go. And then tomorrow and the next day in class we'll kind of go over what you could have written there, and you can add some stuff if you need to. So the first example is going to be x squared plus 7x plus 12. So it's going to ask you to factor x squared plus 7x plus 12. Now remember, when we talked about multiplying binomials, you always came up with a trinomial. I shouldn't say always, but most of the time. This is going to be the opposite what we talked about. So when you were multiplying those binomials, you were getting a trinomial out of them. Now you're going to learn how to take the trinomial and get two binomials from it. In order to do that, you're going to use the diamond, and then you're going to use factoring by grouping, which you learned already. So we're going to go ahead and set up the diamond. Hopefully you remember how to do that from before winter break. Diamonds, what you're going to do, which you haven't learned this part yet, you've only learned how to actually use the diamond, is you are going to take, you can set one up here and then you can draw it over here and write the rules if you need to. The first and the last term and multiply them. So 12 times x squared is 12x squared, and you'll do that every time. Then you'll take your middle term. Notice it's written in standard form. It should always be in standard form. Take your middle term, use the sign that comes with it, and that goes in the bottom of your diamond. Now you're looking for something that adds to be 7x and multiplies to be 12x squared. Once you figure that out, it's a positive 4x and a positive 3x. These are the two terms that you want. If you notice, 4x plus 3x gives you 7x right there. So all you're trying to do now is rewrite your trinomial as a 4-term polynomial, and then you're going to use factoring by grouping. So, same first term. Rewrite the 7x with two terms that still equal 7x. Plus 4x plus 3x, same last term, plus 12. There's your four terms. Now you're going to take those four terms and you're going to factor by grouping. So take your first two terms, x squared plus 4x, plus the 3x plus 12, and let's go ahead and practice our factoring by grouping. You're looking for a common factor here, greatest common factor, which is x. You have x plus 4 left over. Greatest common factor here is 3. It's a positive. You have x plus 4 left over. You were looking for those matching binomials, which you have. So that's one of your factors, and then your other factor is the x and the plus 3. Now you have x plus 4 times x plus 3. If you were to multiply this back out, you should get x squared plus 7x plus 12. So go ahead and practice that right now and check it right there on your own. Your paper probably has a little more room than mine, so we're going to go ahead and just write those rules right here so that you kind of have your rules. With your diamond, you always want to make sure that the expression is in standard form. If it's not in standard form, your diamond's not going to work correctly. And when you look at that, this is going to be your first term times the last term, or the third term. Okay, so put multiplied by or whatever if you need to. This is just your middle term. And then these are the numbers that you want, and those replace the middle term in the expression, so that every time you're going to end up with 4 terms and then you factor by grouping. So go ahead and hit pause now and write some stuff over on the left that you think you would need to know, and then we'll show one more example. Write down example 2. Notice this time there's a coefficient in front of the x squared. In example 1 there was no coefficient, so in example 1 when you set up your diamond, all you did was multiply x squared times your last term. Now you need to multiply 7x squared times your last term. You're still going to follow all the same rules, but you're going to find a pattern in the ones that just have the x squared with no coefficient here, with just a 1, that makes it a little bit easier. So as you're factoring those with just a 1 as your coefficient, kind of watch for that pattern so that you eventually see it. I'm not going to tell it to you. You have to figure it out on your own, and once you figure it out, you can let me know. But that pattern does not work when you have a coefficient here, which is why I'm not telling you about it. Okay, so you're going to set up your diamond. And remember, multiply first term times the last term right here. So you need to check your signs. You have a negative here, so it's going to be a negative 56x squared. And then you want to bring your middle term down, negative 26x. Now this goes to those rules of the diamonds that we had talked about. So we have a negative up here with our multiplication, which means we know we have one positive and one negative, and our larger number will be negative because of this part. So positive, negative. You've got some big numbers, so stop and think about them for a minute, see if you can figure it out, and then hit play when you're ready. Alright, so hopefully you figured out that your positive needs to be a 2x and your negative needs to be a 28x, and you always check it. Positive times negative, 2 times 28, negative 56, and the x is x squared. And then negative 28x plus 2x is a negative 26x. From here, remember, you don't want these two terms. That's a mistake people make because they say 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you think about it, all you're trying to do is replace that middle term with two terms that are equivalent to it. So if you were to take 56x squared, you're actually taking these two terms already multiplied together, which isn't what you want to do. All you want to do is keep your first term, keep your last term the same, replace your middle term with two terms that are equivalent to it. So what I tend to do is circle these so that I don't accidentally forget, and some of you might even want to get used to crossing those off so you don't actually use it. You'd also be using the negative 26x twice if you were to write 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a way to remember it. Go ahead and write your factoring by grouping, which is same first, same last. So 7x squared, I'm replacing my middle term. And every year I have students ask if the order of these matters. It doesn't. Now you're going to go ahead and look for your greatest common factors. So we will look at the first two, 7x squared plus 2x. We have two negatives here, so if you want, you can already pull a negative out and then write them as positive. It's up to you how you want to do that, but it's probably easier to look at it as the two terms negative still right now, because you don't want to lose that by accident. So you're looking for your greatest common factor here, which is just x. And then you have a 7x plus 2 left over. Looking for your greatest common factor here, which is a negative 4. And then because you pulled the negative out, now you're not going to have to do anything, so you have 7x. Negative, negative is positive, so plus 2. You have your matching binomial, which is what you needed to have. That's one of your binomials. Your other is the x subtracting 4. Go ahead and multiply those out right now and make sure that when you do, you end up back at the original expression. Hit play once you've done that and written anything you might need to know over here, and we'll do one final example. The last example actually shows you something that you've already learned, but you just need to always be checking for it first. And that's something you might even want to go write on page 1 or 2 over here, is make yourself a note that your first thing you should always do, hint, that might be a question you want to ask yourself and you might want to write the answer somewhere over here. The first thing you always do is check to see if this has a common factor, a GCF for every term that you need to actually take out first. And you saw this in some of the grouping ones also. In this case, if you look here, notice we have a greatest common factor of 5. So all you're going to do, exactly like you've already learned before, is pull that greatest common factor of 5 out. Don't lose the 5, because you need to be able to multiply it back in to get back to that expression. So divide each expression by 5 and you get 4x squared plus, and then you have to be really careful here because it's really easy to make simple mistakes, and you want to make sure you don't make a simple mistake there. 16x plus 7. Once you're here, you always try to factor further. You look to see, can I factor this further? Because it's a trinomial, 3 terms, you're going to try a diamond. If you can find something that works for the diamond, then you move on to your factoring by grouping, but you never lose this 5. If this doesn't factor, then it means it just stops there and you're done factoring. So go ahead and hit pause right now. Try it on your own. See if you can factor this trinomial using the rules we just learned, and then hit play when you're ready to check it. Alright, so hopefully you remembered, multiply your first and your last term and you should have had a positive 28x squared. Then bring your middle term down. Once you found the two things that multiply to be the 28x squared and add to be 16x, you should have found a positive 2x, positive 14x. These are going to replace your middle term. So you rewrite it. Don't lose your 5. If you need to, go down to where you're going to write your answer right now and put that 5 there, or just keep bringing the 5 over right now just to kind of remember that it's there. Now we have 4x squared plus 2x plus 14x plus our last term, which is our 7. Notice I'm using this trinomial, not our original one, because we already have that factor of 5 pulled out there. Now I'm going to look for my greatest common factor here, which is a 2x. And I end up with 2x plus 1. Don't forget those 1's left over, because 2x goes into 2x one time. And then I have a greatest common factor of 7, which ends up being 2x plus 1. There's my matching binomials. Don't lose that 5. So I have a 5 here, 2x plus 1, and then 2x plus 7. If you wanted to check this, you can multiply these, and you should get to right there, and then you should distribute a 5, and you should get to your original expression. Go ahead and write what you need to on the left, and then we'll practice these tomorrow in class.